Real estate is not a side hustle. It's not. This is not one of those little things like, yeah, I do real estate on the side. I would never trust a realtor that's just kind of like, that's like my little, like braiding hair, that's something you can do on Saturdays and Sundays or something. Someone spending $500,000 on where they lay their head at night is not something that I take lightly, and I wouldn't want that to be taken lightly from someone whose services I'm utilizing.
Many people are stuck in the place that they're in largely because of the fact that they're not around people that challenge them. And it's not that they don't know those people don't challenge them, it's that they're scared to be alone.
I am going to make a personal commitment to execution over perfection.
Right now, my company is making, over $200,000 a month.
If you give me a piece of music, what am I going to play? And you put that same, piece of music or elements of music in the hands of Michael Jackson, what is that going to create? Little becomes much when you place it in the hands of the master.
It's been a long day. Traveling is just like, oof.
Yeah. So welcome to another edition of Believers Breed, the podcast, where the aim is to help people embrace self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-worth. I get the opportunity to sit down with cool folks, cool people that are doing crazy stuff, all because of mindset. I think that is very important that we all develop skill sets, but all of those things got to be based in a mindset to go get it. And so I got a longtime friend with me here today, Miss Bree Earley. If you could just introduce yourself to the people.
Absolutely. So my name is Bree Earley. I go by Bree. I'm originally born and raised in Northridge, California. I graduated when I was 17 and went to Tennessee State University. So I lived in Nashville, Tennessee for about 8 years or so. And then in 2015, I decided to relocate to Atlanta. I think I just kind of got tired of the slow-paced city of Nashville. So I got licensed in 2017, and then I went full-time in 2019 with a career in real estate. So this is my third full-time year, and I am now the associate broker of my small boutique, Black-owned, all-woman firm. And I've recently become licensed in Nashville, as well as a certified member of the Luxury Home Marketing Institute. So I'm just now in Atlanta, literally.
Heavy.
Yeah.
So look, before we get in, I do want to say I feel like Atlanta is going bananas right now. What exactly is going on? What's in the water?
So my theory is that because of COVID last year and the technology that we have now, a lot of people that would have maybe 10 years ago or like in the 07, 08 recession wouldn't have had the opportunity to just be transitioned to work at home positions were able to do so last year. So you're taking these high salaries from New York and from California and all these other places, and you're able to relocate to more affordable places like Atlanta, to where you can work remote but still live well, I guess you can say. So, and then aside from that, Atlanta is just known for its Black excellence.
Black Mecca.
Yeah, and it's business opportunities, it's nightlife, it's everything. Even with that being kind of like the new Hollywood, I just think because it's so much more affordable, but you're still able to get that lifestyle of a New York or LA. It has significantly increased the relocations there.
Yeah. So you talked about TSU, and that is where we first met. And like when you're in college and everybody is doing so many different things, when you run across people that have that mindset that you connect with, it's like you want to stay connected to those people. And we met in probably the blackest class that I took at TSU.
Africana Studies.
Yeah. And, you know, we're talking about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all that good stuff. But from that point where I met you then, how did you journey to here? Like, because when I knew you then, it was like makeup was going to be everything you did. So, like, I was like, she pretty cold at makeup, and I'm sure it won't be long before she ends up doing everybody's makeup. And you got really good at it.
I did a few celebrities. It was really starting to pick up. And what I always tell people was that right before I came to Atlanta, so I moved here in 2015. I moved to Atlanta in 2015, and then I didn't get licensed in real estate until 2017. So I was still doing makeup in that time period. But I was a product specialist for MAC Cosmetics for a number of years. And of course, you know, I had made friends with everyone that had worked there and that kind of thing. So right before I left, I was actually offered the assistant manager position. And I was like devastated, devastated, because product specialist is, you know your stuff, you know the ingredients, you're able to regurgitate that to the clients and stuff like that. But assistant manager is like a whole different realm of just responsibility, expectation, expertise. So it was such a honor to even be offered that, and I battled with it like so much. I reconsidered my whole move because I just felt like this was my dream job, and I feel like taking this position is gonna be, you know, the next kind of step in my makeup career. So that was a lot to process and really make that decision, but I just felt like, I felt like I was starting to outgrow Nashville.
Gotcha.
So I just kind of felt like, you know what, even if I continue to do makeup full time or wherever it may take me, I don't believe that Nashville is the end all be all.
Gotcha.
And we had a couple conversations about being a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond. And I felt like I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond because the opportunities are gonna be so much bigger. If someone's filming a movie, they're doing it in Atlanta. They're not doing it in Nashville. But it was also kind of like I had made so many connections and I had just been here. It was starting to feel like home, but I just kind of processed it and I was like, you know what? I just feel like Atlanta is where I'm supposed to be. So
I could be wrong, but I feel like going from makeup to real estate is
a 180.
way different. What pushed you to real estate?
So I had a conversation with Gary, Tino's best friend, and he was just kind of telling me like, you know what, there are a lot of opportunities in real estate. He had kind of started this journey of like financial literacy, Black ownership, being vegan. He's like fully vegan now. For the reference, the person I was dating at the time in college, his best friend and I were extremely close. So we had started having all these conversations about eating cleaner and just, you know, what is your long-term plan or your long-term goals to retire from? And I felt like with makeup, of course you can retire from it. I can drop a lot of makeup names. A lot of people may not know them. Rennie Vasquez, Beat-Face Honey, all these kind of people that I had kind of looked up to, and they had really become like mega makeup artists in the industry. So I felt like that's a very hands-on job and it's a very present job. You literally, if I don't do someone's makeup, I'm not gonna get paid. There's literally no way around it. So I kind of started thinking about retirement, retiring my parents, one day when I get married, and I just felt like I need to do something on a bigger platform and with much more magnitude, especially in regards to my community. So I'm a first generation homeowner, first generation college graduate. So I felt like I need to do something that I can specifically reach people who are in my situation, coming out of college, don't know anything, don't have the strongest credit score, may have a lot of student loan debt or whatever, and give them the education and the knowledge and hopefully inspire something in them that if I can do it, why wouldn't you be able to? So I felt like me kind of weighing out, like, do I love, makeup, but do I want to do something much more, I guess heavy is the word. And even with makeup, I did a lot of breast cancer survivors that they're crying when they get their makeup done because this is the first time that they've seen themselves look different or look, a certain kind of way after going through chemo and stuff like that. Or someone who just feels like they're unattractive. And then when you do their makeup, they feel like a completely different person. Yeah. So it was difficult to walk away from something like that. And I'm naturally just very artsy and I'm just like free and I like all that kind of stuff. So it was challenging. And even when I started full-time in real estate, I still was dibbling and dabbling in makeup because I was just like, I just can't let this go. But once I got so busy, it was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to manage the two, right? So I feel like the decision became easy once I felt like, okay, what am I going to retire off of? And real estate can be much more passive because even the time that I'm going to be spending here in Nashville, I've now added an assistant to my team and a complete support staff. And everything's gonna be able to be handled while I'm away.
I got that email from your assistant.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, we're working, and this is her first week, so I'm training her and everything. And I was like, I just forwarded her the email that you sent me, and I said, add this to the calendar. Make sure it's on the address. Make sure it has the address, and add Jeremy and whoever else is in the email. She goes, done. So it's like now I feel like, and I was a little bit afraid to add people because I'm just like, I micromanage a lot. So being able to add that, I am confident that now my business will be able to scale the way that I intended to for this year. And I think that's even another aspect of being able to transition from makeup to something like real estate because she's 24, she's young, she's hungry, she's ready to go. So now me being able to coach her, guide her, and really mentor her in navigating an industry where there's not much guidance is going to be rewarding within itself mutually because not only am I able to take my business to the next level, but she's starting an entirely new business. So I'm excited for that.
So did you have that level of mentorship?
I did. So when I initially started, and I got licensed in 2017, but I didn't become full-time until 2019 just because I was still kind of doing makeup. It was like I had it in my back pocket, but I wasn't really taking it seriously. I wasn't ready to, okay, you know what, I'm gonna stop everything and dive deep into this. And of course I had bills and, real estate is a commission-based business. You don't get paid until closing. And that can be 30 days from the time that you initially onboard a client, as opposed to makeup. It's like, hey girl, can you do my makeup in 2 hours? And I'm like, sure, and then you get paid in that moment, right? So when I first started, I was just, to be honest, all over the place. Once I kind of started doing my research and I felt like, okay, I want this to be something great and something so large, I need to give it 1,000%. So I started looking up a bunch of different realtors on Instagram, Black women, and I kind of started following maybe about 5 or 6 of them. And just over the course of, I'll say maybe about 6 months or so, I'm not gonna say I was studying them, but
just observing.
Yeah, very observant because I have a very specific personality type. I'm like a lot, but I'm a lot of amazing things. So I felt like someone that I work with is going to have to be able to handle my loud personality.
Gotcha.
So in kind of studying these different realtors, I honed in on Kiana Watson, which is now my broker. And at the time, she had just announced that she had hired an assistant, which is my colleague now, and we're so close, and it's so crazy how things happen, but Kiara Roberts. And I felt like, okay, she just hired someone, so maybe she's like not ready to hire someone else, because I know that can be a lot. So I kind of waited a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? Why am I trying to determine what she can do? What if this is like we turn into a what we are now, and that was my vision at the time. So I started emailing her, DMing her, all that kind of stuff. I didn't get any response. So she had announced that she was going to be hosting an open house, her and Kiara, on the same day. So I looked at Kiara's page. Kiara had posted one address and Kiana posted the other. So I knew she would be there. I went to the open house. She was extremely taken aback. that I had like popped up, but I wasn't getting the responses that I wanted via Instagram. So, and I felt like because I had already kind of evaluated her personality, a little bit of her life, of what I could see on Instagram, I knew that once she met me, she would fall in love with me and we would just take off from there. And that's literally exactly what happened. She was at first kind of like irritated, like, why are you showing up here kind of unannounced? And then she was like, okay, what's your name? What's your background? I'll email you and we'll set up an interview. She still didn't email me, so I was very persistent. She finally emailed me and said, let's have a conversation. And literally the day that I went in, I started the next day.
That's crazy because there are so many people saying that they want to do real estate now or do anything, but the level of persistence that you just talked about, you don't see that. And so if they don't DM me back or they don't email me back,
They're discouraged.
Yeah,
and
maybe it's not meant to be, so on and so forth. Where did you learn that from? Is it just you? Is that your personality?
That is my personality, because anything that I want, I know that it's attainable in some sense. So I felt like, and I also, so when I was in college, I felt like, I can make things happen, but the level of, I don't know if it's intellect or maybe spiritual or emotional maturity that I'm at now, I know that it's mindset and it's moving, speaking, thinking, and seeing with intention, and that's going to be able to determine what the outcome is. So I was just kind of like, at first when she wasn't, getting back to me, my mom was like, well, honey, is there someone else you want to, work with, or let's explore some other options? And I've always kind of been a no plan B person, because counting on plan B means that you already, in my mind, expect plan A to fail, because you're only going to have a plan B if plan A doesn't work out. Exactly. So I felt like, okay, this is what I want. Let me just work on manifesting it to happen exactly how I want it to. And as long as I believe that it's going to happen that way and have that faith, I know the execution is just a part of energy being reciprocated and the universe aligning things to be what they need to be, which is what you want. So I literally kept saying, she's gonna love me. Me and Kiara are gonna get close. Everything's gonna work out in my favor. It's going to be organic. And it's going to blossom into something that I can't even imagine right now. And it literally happened that exact way. So to answer your question, I've always been persistent, but I think now my persistence is much more intentional.
Gotcha.
So my earlier days of being persistent, just younger, was just like determination. I want it, so I'm gonna get it. Now it's kind of like, I deserve these things and everything has to work out the way that I expect it to.
So when I look at real estate, I feel like you're relatively new to real estate, but you're extremely experienced in real estate. And I'm saying that because of the high volume of homes that you've been able to sell. What is that contrast like for you, being someone that technically you're young in this, but you've exceeded what a lot of people who've been in it for a long time have been able to do? Is that like a difficult place to be in? Do you find yourself like, dang, I'm kind of young, but I'm really doing really good at it?
See, and I was on live the other day and someone asked me what has been my biggest challenge in my career, and I honestly feel like sometimes I'm too hard on myself, and that's the challenge, is overcoming these expectations that I've set on myself that can oftentimes be a bit unrealistic, because I'm one person, I'm still figuring it out. There's no blueprint on how to be an entrepreneur, especially in a white male dominated industry. I have a full sleeve, I have my nose pierced, I used to wear red hair. So when I come to a closing, everyone's kind of like, we're dealing with attorneys, we're dealing with lenders, we're dealing with bank statements, where it's one of the biggest transactions that anyone will ever make in their life. You don't make a bigger investment generally than the home that you are purchasing. So I'm not gonna say that it is difficult to navigate this industry being young and being relatively new. It has its challenges, because I've had situations where I've dealt with entitled people that felt like, how that goes. I don't even want to give too much energy to that. But I've had instances where, I could feel that someone felt like I shouldn't be here or I didn't deserve this kind of thing. But I really do put in the work, and I just have to keep reminding myself the more I put into this, it has to return. Like, that's just like law of attraction. That's just like whether you believe in God or the universe or the stars or whatever it is, across the board, what you give, you have to get. So I feel like as long as I just kind of stay focused on what I need to be doing, how I need to be doing it, it will continue at this pace for me. And then also, anytime that I do start to feel hard on myself, I have a great support system between my mom, who literally feels like I can do anything. If I called her right now and I was like, you know what, I want to be an astronaut, she'll start looking up.
Where
like,
did I sign you up?
Exactly. Same thing, my best friend, Elise, she kind of got me onto this mindset thing, if you will, and she constantly talks to me like, you know what, you may not be where you're at, but remember where you started, and this was where you wanted to be, so be grateful and feel it right now, and accept what's happening, and then feel the excited emotions about what's coming next.
That's good.
So, and that can really help you pivot a situation or pivot your mindset, because being an entrepreneur, I don't have hours. I don't have a boss saying, hey, did you get that done? Or I don't have a set vacation time or whatever. So whenever I get in a darker space mentally about what I'm not doing, it's important to have those people around you who are able to see from the outside looking in and remind you you're actually doing phenomenal, especially given the circumstances, given where you're at, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I would definitely have to say, my support system, I guess you can say, I have to highly attribute a lot of my being able to keep moving in this industry and navigating different situations and feeling like I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm doing great for where I'm at and being new.
That's good, because good people are hard to find. They're hard to find. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of real estate, and I want to use what you just mentioned as a segue. So you said as an entrepreneur, you don't have a boss. Prior to the last couple of years or so, I never really looked at real estate or realtors as an entrepreneur, and I always felt like the broker, in your case, Kiana, was like the boss. Can you kind of go into that? Because I think a lot of people
Have that
mindset.
Yeah. So to clarify, okay, so a broker is responsible for all of their agents in regards to if I make a mistake or something on a contract, the Georgia Real Estate Commission is going to initially address her about the mistake.
Gotcha.
And that's a lot of reason why everyone's always like, so, you know, you're doing so great now, do you want to be a broker? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, there is no part of me that wants to start my own brokerage at all whatsoever, seeing the level of responsibility it truly is. But in essence, when I close on a home and I receive my commission check, I'm paying the broker. So even though we're working together, I'm not necessarily working for my broker, I'm working with them.
Gotcha.
If I have any questions or run into something that I've just never seen before, whatever, I can call my broker for support or an answer to a question, but she can't call me and like make me do something, or I don't have like hours or anything like that. So a lot of people don't understand that realtors are entrepreneurs because we have to create our own business. Like, I can literally run my business however I want to. So when I onboard a new client, my processes are to send a follow-up email of the conversation that we've had, connect you with a lender, then I'll follow up with you, then we'll do our buyer's consult. Like, these are my specific processes. If I just wanted to kind of like, someone call me and then we go home shopping the next day, or how, you get what I'm saying? So you can literally create your business to be whatever you want it to be, which is the definition of an entrepreneur. And then the fact that I've kind of branched out and I've started educating with real estate, that within itself is a business. And I'm having to figure out, okay, How are we going to receive payment? How are we going to process payment? How are we, you know what I'm saying? All that kind of stuff. And now that I've added a support staff, I got to get payroll because I got to pay them now. I got to, do taxes differently. There's just so many different aspects that you're not aware of looking on Instagram and just seeing realtors. But on the back end, I'm having to run this like a full-on business because it is that. So that is the difference of being just like a realtor, just kind of doing what you want or whatever, because I'm everybody does it differently. But me specifically, I consider myself an entrepreneur because this is my business.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Is there a difference between a realtor and a real
Real
estate
estate agent, yes. So a realtor is a part of an association, and so I'm a part of the Atlanta Realtors Association. So I have annual fees, as well as being held to a higher standard of a real estate agent.
Gotcha.
So that's why you'll notice oftentimes if a realtor is a realtor, they will consistently say that because I'm held to a higher code of ethics, standards, morals, all that kind of stuff. A real estate agent doesn't have that membership of that organization. That's another layer of accountability, if you will.
Do you choose to do that? Is there a choice?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Your broker can determine if that is a requirement, which ours is, and most are, like for the most part, most brokers will require you to be a part of an organization or a part of a realtors association, because there's also a lot of added benefits. They have like amazing events and
Gotcha.
charity events and stuff like that. So, but once I did my research on what the difference is, I'm like, okay, I want to.
So, you talked about your process, and this is something that I would be very interested to hear because you've been very successful over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
The onboarding process for you, I'm assuming now people are probably knocking at your door, and you're not having to go out and scout as much for people.
But you know what's so funny? Okay, I'm gonna let you finish the question first and then double back to the answer of that.
So once someone reaches out to you, now it may be your assistant. What is that process? What are the steps to your process?
Okay, so what I was gonna say was I've never had to look for clients. So when I started, I do daily affirmations every day, verbal affirmations, and I generally adjust them at the top of the year, just because it's like, okay, whatever I accomplished by December, let's realign for what the new goals are for the rest of the year,
Gotcha.
and the verbal affirmations need to dictate
Match.
what that, exactly. So when I first started, it was, and I took a picture of it on my phone because I actually wanted to post it on my Instagram and talk about it for any new agents, but it was, clients are coming to me. I don't have to work for clients. They're going to be asking to work with me based on my level of knowledge or my level of experience that I can provide them. And that was literally exactly what happened. So my very first transaction was, I hosted, so Kiana had a listing. I hosted the open house, and there were 3 people that came, and one of them we ended up having a lengthy conversation about the neighborhood, about just literally everything. Later on, I got an email and they were like, Bree, we are so impressed with you. Would you be willing to take us on as clients? And I was like, oh my gosh. It literally did not happen exactly. And that, I think that was the light bulb of like, okay, this is like, you can really manifest whatever you want, because I had just been diligently saying that. And when I started Super Bowl weekend in Atlanta of 2019. So Kiana had said, you know what, Super Bowl weekend is too crazy out here. I don't want you running around during this time. We'll start next week. And I was like, why? I can start now. Who cares if the city's like on fire with, you know what I'm saying, all these people. So I started February. I got them under contract like February 25th. And then they closed the very first week of April. So I wasn't even able to be her assistant for a long time because it was like once it always takes that first one. Once I posted that first one, I had another closing in May, and then I had another closing in June. And at that time, I had only closed $3 million that year.
Wait a minute, what?
Well, okay, so
I had only closed $3 million.
and that is great for someone new. But at that time, my goal, I think, was 5 million. So I was disappointed when my numbers came in and it was 3. So I was like, oh, I should have done this, whatever. But that is great because I was also a top producer my very first year. And that's like unheard of because I forget the exact statistics, but most people, I think, either like quit within their first year of real estate or they only close, I think, like 1 million or something like less than that. I don't know exactly what the statistics are, Jeremy. So it was great, but I was still kind of like, okay, I could have done more. But I had consistently started having closings and I was just too busy to be her assistant anymore. Yeah. So what my processes are now is that you can either email me and we can kind of start the conversation depending on what your timeline is. You can call or text me directly, and if I'm available, we'll have the conversation right then and there. Or I'll say, hey, I'm at a closing, or hey, I'm whatever, can we schedule a time? Or you can click the link in my bio on Instagram and just put yourself on my schedule based on the availability. So we have the initial phone consultation, and that conversation is more so just kind of like, how much do you have saved? What is your current credit score? When does your lease end? What areas are you looking in? Very preliminary.
Let's pause right there. Do people lie when you ask them that?
How much do they have?
Like income, saved?
So they don't lie, but they will say, I make, $80,000 a year, but they didn't tell me that they had a $1,000 car note or they have $50,000 in debt, so, and that's the purpose of me to just get kind of the preliminary information to see where they're at, and then I send them to one of my preferred lenders because they're gonna dig deep into their file. So, so then I send them to the preferred lender, they get approved, then we do our buyer's consultation where that's much more detailed. Now that we have a concrete number of what you're approved at, that's gonna determine everything else. That's gonna determine the area you can live in, because if you're approved for 400,000 and you anticipate it to be approved for 600, that's a huge gap. So instead of being in a certain county, you're now limited to these areas. So we'll talk about property types, school district if you have kids, and then I go over all of the associated paperwork with the transaction. So I like to just kind of generally explain what the contract looks like and what the terms are, so by the time that we start writing offers, you're not completely shocked, or it eliminates a lot of questions. And then also an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. So that agreement basically says, if I'm representing you as the buyer, the seller pays my commission, and you're agreeing to that. And then I'm also working for you exclusively as your realtor. So you can't be working with 6 other people, exactly, and then we're all showing up on closing day looking crazy like, who is owed this commission? After we go over the paperwork, I'll set you up in a portal to start receiving property alerts, and then from there, we'll start home shopping. And then once we secure a home, submit an offer, get under contract, then everything pretty fluidly goes from there. We'll have an inspection, an appraisal, and of course I have my recommended vendors, and then I'll do weekly updates, and then our final walkthrough, and then a grand closing.
So right now, this process is very competitive. So if someone is contacting you, and you're asking them for paperwork, and they drag their feet, home might be gone?
Absolutely. Because homes are not only selling for overvalue significantly, but they're also not on the market very long, especially depending on the area that you're looking in. So if you're looking in a highly rated school district or a very highly coveted area based on the appreciation there or whatever, you need to be submitting your highest and best offer and really putting your foot forward, because we're not going to write any offers until your financing is secured. So we move as quickly as you move. So most people, when I have that initial phone consultation, I give them the expectation of what the documentation is that the lender is going to be requiring. So go ahead and get your bank statements ready, your W-2s, your pay stubs. If you're an entrepreneur or like a 1099 worker, we have a couple different options to where you can do a bank statement loan. That's going to require the most recent 12 months bank statements, or your 2 years tax returns and your last 60 days bank statements. So it depends on what you do for a living, where you're at, all that kind of stuff. Most people that are serious, so you can start to see who's serious about it and who's like on a tight timeline based on that initial connecting them with the lender. Now, some people, they may have a hard time obtaining 401k plan information from their HR. And obviously that's a given because you just don't off the top of your head generally know that, but they're gonna call and say, hey, how do I obtain this information? Or I'm missing one thing from my bank, or whatever, give me 24 hours to get it. Or you can tell who's really serious and who's just kind of like, this is too much, I don't want to do this.
So with it being so competitive, are you a shark right now when it comes to negotiating, competing with other agents that want the same home? Like, how does that impact your line of work?
So I can't be a shark necessarily, because in this market, if a seller has, on average, 30 other offers.
On average? Jeez.
The most I seen was 82. The agent had emailed me back and she was like, hey, out of 82 offers, we've decided, and I was like, this is ridiculous. But on average, it's anywhere from like 15 to 30. That's kind of what is normal right now. You catch more bees with honey than you do vinegar. So my negotiation strategies last year, when there was maybe 9 offers on a home, 7 at the most, are very different than what they have to be now. I have to kind of butter up the agents a little bit more. I'm going that extra mile of calling them and assuring them that if you select this offer, I guarantee you we will make it to closing. Because that's the concern on their end, is is this really gonna close? Long story short, that's all they're concerned about. The seller wants to walk away with their maximum proceeds. So out of all of these offers, how do I know that if we select Bree's offer, it's actually gonna close over John and Sam and whoever else? I will say that my social media presence has helped with winning offers, and my reputation preceding me. So I'm not gonna say a lot of agents, some agents are already following me and they're like, I know you can get this done.
Yeah.
Your offer is standing out, not only from my offer terms that are strong, my presentation of the offer, but also the fact that they can see on my Instagram that I advocate for my clients, but I'm also going to see the entire transaction through.
Gotcha. How much of the offer do you encourage for your buyers? So like, will you tell them, hey, you might have to be willing to pay 20 over?
Absolutely, because I'm the expert. So they're relying on me. It's like, I've sold over 60 homes, you're only buying 1. So I have the knowledge and the resources to make that offer recommendation.
Gotcha.
So once you find a home, I email you a complete offer recommendation of every single term, the comps, the averages, the medians, all that kind of stuff of that specific neighborhood. And then I tell you, okay, this is what I think that we should offer based on this information. You're more than willing to do whatever it is that you want. You can go higher, you can go lower, but based on the numbers and my judgment, this is what we should do.
What about on the other side if you're selling the home?
I will go over all the offer terms with the seller and explain to them why this is the offer that we should select. And that's going to be basically the same thing in reverse, who their financing is through. Me working in the business, certain lenders don't have the best reputation. And I'm going to be honest with my seller and tell them, hey, this lender doesn't have the best reputation. We shouldn't go with this one because this is less likely to close. Or this form of financing is not as strong as this one, so we should do this. So all of the sellers that I've represented, we've never had a termination or anything. All of the offers that I've suggested them to take, it went through to closing. Because with me being a buyer's agent, if I'm writing these offers and I'm on that other side, I know exactly on the flip side what to look for. So and knock on wood, thank you, Jesus.
Keep it
We haven't had,
going.
right. We haven't had any terminations on the seller side, so we're gonna keep that up. But generally, when someone submits an offer, whether I'm the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, that's a clear indication of what the rest of the transaction is gonna look like. So, and that's why I take it so seriously of how I present my offers, because if I just, send it over and it's missing stuff, or I don't introduce myself, or whatever the situation is, it's kind of like, it's not standing out, as opposed to if I really take my time to put together a presentation of the offer. 8 times out of 10, the listing agent is going to be very impressed. And even the offers that I haven't won, based on my clients' limitations of either finances, savings, financing type, whatever, the listing agent was still like, oh, I was so impressed with your offer. I wanted to work with you, but my seller is concerned about blank.
So you're a heavy communicator, and you want your communication to be clear. I know that. And I think you've conveyed that. What about for the clients that you work with? Do you want them to be the same way? Which I'm sure you do. Do you run into clients that aren't like answering the phone, not responding to emails?
Absolutely. So every, what is the word? Every somewhat challenging transaction I've had, I assess what went great and what did not go so great, and then I implement more systems and more paperwork and more questions based on that. Because I always tell people, when you work a traditional job, you've got the same boss every day, you've got the same coworkers, it's very structured, and it's very easy to build your expectations around that. In this business, I have a new client every time. I have a new agent that I'm working with. I have a new lender. I have a new attorney, a new appraiser, a new inspector. It's going to be something completely different. And you're just dealing with so many people. It's just so many different personality types. So many different personality types. And most of my people come to me from Instagram. So they are generally, they know what to expect. They are kind of, Keon always says your clients are a reflection of you. Most of my clients are kind of fiery, or they're kind of, you know what I'm saying? So most of my clients are easygoing. They have those kind of strong communication skills, but sometimes if they don't, like one client I remember I had, I think we were texting a lot, but she either wanted to talk or vice versa. We were talking a lot and she'd rather text. So I came up with like a form when you initially are onboarded, and it's called an all about me form. And that's what's your preferred method of communication, because that's important. I'm not a talker outside of real estate. I'm not. Any business, my dentist texts me. Like when I need to book an appointment, text me, because I don't have, and that's mainly because of my business. I'm too busy to, so little things like that can really change that person's experience. If I'm a texter and my realtor is texting me all the time, that's going to be much more beneficial for me than if my realtor's trying to call me all the time. And I'm like, I can't talk right now, I'm at work, or, whatever the situation is. So even when things are a bit challenging or difficult, or I see like, okay, this personality type, this isn't working, I try to figure out what can we implement, change, or restructure so that the experience is not only consistent, but it's also tailored to each specific client.
That's good.
Because that's important. I don't want, this isn't like a one size fits all. Even with like me doing videography now and brunch and stuff like that at closing, my question is, okay, I have a driver that's coming to pick you up. We're gonna be having brunch. There's gonna be a photographer and a videographer at closing. Are you okay with all of those things? And clients will say, I can't wait for brunch. I don't drink champagne, so no mimosas. The videographer is fine. I'm gonna have a bunch of people with me, so no driver, or whatever the situation is. So I wanna start to make sure that every single detail is tailored to that specific person.
So the brunch, the driver, all of that, do all of your clients get that?
Yes. So before I wasn't doing it for every single person, but now where I'm at in my career, I'm
Where are you in your career? Don't try to be modest.
As I elevate, as far as my numbers,
What numbers?
so my goal this year, and
Talk to us. Talk to us.
my goal at the beginning of the year was 20 million by the end of the year for the entire year in sales. So right now I've closed about 6 with maybe 4 in the pipeline, like 4 million under contract. But we're already in July, so we now have 5 months. So with me being a little bit further from my goal than I'd like to be, I'm in
Overgrind.
yeah, literally overtime, overdrive, literally everything. So I'm really now taking a deeper look at what can I do to make every client have the same consistent experience regardless of their price point, regardless of their area, regardless of their status, regardless of anything. So what I would do for a celebrity client is now the exact same that I would do for a first-time homeowner.
That's good.
And that's the match, is that what the celebrity would get, the first time, whatever would get, just to make sure that all of my clients are having that same closing experience. Because someone who is spending, I have young girls that come to me. I've closed a number of girls that were like, I seen that you own a home, and I talked about owning my first property. I didn't have parents to give me my down payment. I didn't have a husband to give me my down payment, and you don't have to wait for that. And a lot of women, I talk to so many girls, and so many of them are like, you know what, I'll just wait until I'm married. And I'm like, but why would you go into a marriage without any assets? I don't even believe in that. Like, I don't even know how I could come to a man that he's pursuing me and I want to be in a serious relationship with, and I have nothing. I have an apartment and like a job. That's just not enough for me for what I'm expecting of him. Because if I want, you know what I'm saying? It needs to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
So, and not to get too much off in a tangent, but I always try to encourage my young lady home buyers to still figure it out. Ask your parents. You can get a gift from your parents, from your grandparents, from whoever. You can have a donor give you your down payment. And if you don't ask, closed mouths don't get fed. So a lot of times I've had clients that didn't have the money, and I'm like, have you asked your mom? And then they go, okay, let me call. And they're like, my mom has $3,000 to give me. I didn't even know she had that kind of money. Exactly, because you didn't ask and the opportunity didn't present itself. Most parents are gonna support something like this, so they're gonna figure it out however they need to get it done for their child. So with all that being said, someone that is spending what the average purchase price is in Atlanta right now is about $360. That down payment is like a little bit over $20,000. That's mind-blowing for some people. That's like, I'm depleting my savings to be able to purchase a home. But then you also have clients who are purchasing at $1 million, and their down payment is now in a whole different bracket, because first-time homeowners that are under jumbo loans, which in Atlanta is less than $550, that's 3%. That's the minimum down payment that you can do. When you get into jumbo loan territory, anything over $550, you're now 20%. Depending on your credit and your profession, you may be able to go down to 10, 15. But even if something is $1 million and the down payment is 10%, that's $100,000. And someone might feel like, that's chump change, depending on what they do. So either way, you're still closing on a home, and it's still a beautiful, magnificent thing to be celebrated. So I want to make sure that that not only are the processes and everything consistent, but especially that last final hoorah of, okay, I'm getting my keys now, and I had that someone picked me up. It's a luxury experience regardless of the purchase price.
That's good. So luxury. Do you normally see a difference in the luxury experience from onboarding to closing to what you see with the non-luxury experience?
Absolutely, because luxury homes are generally going to be your forever home. That's you're spending a significantly higher amount of money. So you're looking for more. The conversation is different. The areas are different that you're looking in because certain areas max out at a certain price point. As well as you're a bit more educated about the process, either because you've already initially done the work to figure everything out because you're spending this amount of money, or this isn't your first home purchase. For a lot of African Americans, though, in Atlanta, their luxury home is their first home purchase because just with the level of technology now, you got a lot of young people that are making $1 million off of YouTube, off of SoundCloud, off of TikTok, off of all these different things. So millennials are now purchasing their forever homes the first time, you know? So the conversation is different though, because a lot of times the lower price points are champagne taste on a beer budget. They want literally everything. Everything.
How much you got down?
Exactly. So, and it's really just comes from a lack of knowledge. They don't know what's on the market. They don't know what's available in their price point. But it's different, but I feel like as long as you have the patience and the knowledge and being able to adapt to those different personalities and stuff like that, you're able to navigate any price point, in which I pride myself on being able to, because in my very first year, I had sold a home that was like 4 something, and by the end of that year, I'd had another client that was only approved for $100,000, and we ended up finding an adorable 2-story townhome for like $95,000. And both clients, ironically enough, were extremely like patient, understanding, very just like calm and willing to follow my lead and follow my processes. And then you got some other people in there that had a hard time, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like I study everything so that when an investor comes to me, I know what areas to suggest to him. When a family of 5 looking for their forever home in a top-rated school district with certain amenities in a neighborhood or in a community come to me with a budget of $2 million, I'm able to direct them on where to go. And I feel like a lot of realtors have not mastered that because they may turn away someone, you know, who's not at the level that they're looking to service, or they get someone who's at that luxury level and they're unable to provide what that person needs.
And it probably gives you the same sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, whether the home was 100,000 or whether it was $1 million. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers. So you mentioned that you can get a home for as low as 3% down.
So with a conventional loan, and conventional loans are a little bit harder to qualify for because it comes from private lending, the down payment is 3 to 5%. 3 for a first-time home buyer. If you're using a conventional loan again for like a second home or something like that, then it might be 5%. FHA is government-backed, so it's 3.5%, which is the lowest down. And when everyone asks, what are first-time home buyer programs? Like, I think everyone's under the impression that if you are a first-time home buyer, you're like guaranteed a home or guaranteed a certain kind of loan, and you're not. You still have to qualify. But because FHA is government-backed, the restrictions are a little bit less rigorous, I guess you can say. So your credit score can be a little bit lower. Gotcha. They're much more forgiving of student loans or any kind of loan debt. And recently, the FHA loans update has now been, instead of using 1% of your total student loan amount counted into your monthly debt, it's now literally in half. So that is opening up, because, and I gave this example the other day on my live, was that if you have $50,000 of student loan debt and they're counting 1% of that, which would be $500, a lot of people may not be able to handle that amount of debt monthly.
Added to, yeah.
Exactly, added to everything that they already have. So now that it would be $250, that can still, you know what I'm saying? They still have to count something depending on the repayment plan that you're on. But that's going to open up the doors for a lot of people who have a significant amount of debt, student loan debt, and have previously been denied home ownership because of that. I get so many people, they have so much student loan debt, whether they went to school out of state or whatever the case, and they're not on the proper repayment plan, or they haven't started it, or they're just not making the money to repay it. And until you can get that in order, you're unable to move forward.
Do you advise people to try to stay away from it if possible? Student loan?
I feel like if you can, what I would have done differently, because I have student loans, I would have done the research earlier on of how to become an in-state resident, so that I could have got that in-state resident tuition, and I would have been able to afford that. But coming from California, there's no, HBCUs on the West Coast at all whatsoever. I didn't know literally anything. I had no idea what I was signing in the bursar's office. I didn't know, like when I say anything, I didn't know the impact it would have once you get out of college.
Schools have to do a better job of educating.
Exactly.
17-year-olds coming in.
Because I wasn't even legal. I was having to call my mom and dad. They haven't graduated from college, so they don't. It's not like they can tell me now that I've experienced this. If I have kids, I'll be able to tell them, okay, no. Let's recalibrate and let's figure out, X, Y, Z. Also, the amount of financial literacy that I have, I'm going to make sure that I have my children's college tuition, whatever school they want to go to, by the time I have kids, so that this doesn't even need to be a conversation. Or focus on their grades much more in high school, so that scholarship, there's just so many different things, and hindsight is obviously, 2020, but if you can some way, somehow stay away from student loan debt, even if that is the deciding factor of where you go to school, I would suggest that. I loved TSU, so the only thing I would do differently was probably maybe work a summer or something first before coming to school, so that I'm an in-state resident.
Gotcha. So is there such thing as making too much money to qualify for FHA?
Now, FHA, I believe, does have income limits. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I would say so, though, because FHA maxes out at a certain amount. So those jumbo loans that we were talking about,
you can't get.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a home that's $700,000, that's automatically conventional. So if you have that much income, you wouldn't be going FHA, because that's geared more towards the first-time home buyers that have more debt, less money down, all that kind of stuff. Because again, a jumbo loan is going to at least start out at 10% of whatever the purchase price is. Depending on some other factors, it may go up to 20.
So you got conventional, FHA, anything else?
VA, which is for like anybody in the military. And with that, you don't have a down payment at all. You're just responsible for your closing costs, right? So off the top of my head, I don't know, like if it's how long you've been like discharged from the Army, or like, all of those details. But anytime that anyone says that they have a family member or anything VA, I'm always like, let's get you over to the lender and have that conversation. And I'm pretty well versed on somewhat of the lending side, but because real estate is my expertise, I make sure to stay in my realm of expertise and stay in my lane. So any questions that anyone has for me, if I can't answer them, or if it's not my field, then I'll make sure to get you over to the lender, and then they can really break things down. Because I got people that are asking very specific questions about their situation, and I'm not always able to answer them. But those 3 loans, and then we have an entrepreneur loan that is just bank statements. So all they have to do is provide their 12 months bank statements for people that have not filed taxes, or their taxes don't reflect, however much that they made, or what. If they just don't want to go the tax route, you can always do the 12 months bank statements, and your down payment is determined based on your credit score, and it ranges from 10 to 20%.
Do entrepreneurs usually have a harder or easier time?
They have a harder time because entrepreneurs, what I've seen in this generation, they don't have bookkeeping. They're not keeping up with a lot of things. So they're just like filing taxes or just doing it kind of haphazardly without the intention to purchase.
Yeah.
So when it comes time to purchase and
I
they're
don't have anything in place. Yeah.
exactly, or their taxes are reflecting such a low amount of income, it's not enough to get approved for what they want.
Gotcha.
So with the bank statements, the lender is able to average all of that and give you what you should be realistically approved for.
Gotcha.
And that's, private lending, so they can kind of determine, all the ins and outs of that, the down payment being based on certain credit scores and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So before we get out, I want to talk to two people. The first is the person that is looking to potentially buy a home soon. Let's say they are just starting, they may be 6 months to a year out. What do you suggest they do today?
And I get this question so much. Because of the market that we're in and it's not slowing down, the only thing that's going to give you leverage is a strong credit score and savings. This is not the market of sellers paying closing costs. So how we've been talking about the down payment is 3%. You also have closing costs. Closing costs are just the cost of borrowing money. It is what it is. There's no way around it. It's the attorney's fees, the lender's fees, the credit report fees, literally all these little fees. And I always compare it to when you upgrade your phone to an iPhone and you get that first bill and you got an activation fee and you have a data fee and you have the prorated first month plus the beginning of the next month and all these different fees that you barely understand. You can call in to Verizon or whoever you're with and say, hey, I wasn't aware of all these fees or whatever, can you waive this? You're gonna get that person that's gonna say, absolutely not. Or you might get that person that's gonna say, sure, this is your first time, you've been a value customer, blah, blah, blah. That's the exact same thing with closing costs. It's the buyer's responsibility. You may get that seller that says, absolutely not. Then you may get that seller that says, okay, a couple that, it depends. But right now, generally, with this market, there's absolutely no closing costs at all whatsoever, right? Because if you're asking for it, there's 15 other people that have been saving or relocating from New York and they have more money to play with. Not only are they willing to pay over the appraisal, they're willing to pay over the purchase price, and they also don't need any help. And that is a very strong borrower that if I'm on the listing side representing the seller, we're going with that offer.
I trust that.
And then if we're on the buyer side, we're going to get that house because of how strong I'm able to write this offer. I can only write the offer based on what my client gives me. Now, is that to say that's a guarantee? No, but that's going to help significantly. So what you need to do is make sure that your credit score is at least 620 or higher. I do have lenders that accept 580, but what we're looking for is an automated approval once we get you to underwriting, and that's going to be much easier to do the higher your score is. So 580 will get you in the door, 620 will almost guarantee what you're looking to do. And then you want to save at least 6% of whatever the purchase price is that you're looking for. So if you're looking at a home that's $300,000, 3% is 9, then the other 3%, your closing cost is 9, that's $18,000.
You know your numbers, huh?
But you still have your inspection that's about, on average, $350, and then you have an appraisal that might be $600, so that's another $1,000. So even if I say 18, you still have some other little fees, so that would be the minimum of what you need. Ideally, it would be like 20. And then the more assets that you have or the more money you have, let's say if you have 40,000, that's a stronger approval because the lender sees that once you pay this down payment, you still have your monthly mortgage in reserves. You're not depleting your savings. So as much as you can save as possible.
What about things not to do, like a car?
Do not buy a car at all whatsoever, because the lender is looking at it as, if you have a choice, if we go into a recession, of what to pay first, you bought a car first, not a house. You're gonna pay your car note first, not your mortgage. That's very important. No major expenses like furniture or just big things, no frivolous spending. like buying Louboutins or something like that. That's a $700 shoe that reflects poorly on what your spending habits are. No major debt. Try to get they always tell you to keep your utilization at least 30%, but honestly, lenders are looking for 3%. 10, but really 3 is going to keep your score very high and show good payment history. It's also really good to know what's on your credit report. So a lot of people are like, I didn't know that apartment building that I didn't pay the clean out fee or whatever is still on my, reflecting on that. So a really good resource is creditchecktotal.com. That has a pretty accurate
Let me make sure I'm good.
Right. That has a pretty accurate depiction of what your current credit score is. Because
Credit check
total. And lenders don't use your highest score. A lot of people are also under that misconception that, well, I have a 500, a 600, and a 700. Why aren't they using the 7? Lenders only use the mid score. So they throw out that high, throw out the low, and use the mid score.
That's tough.
Right, because most people have a 600, 650, and a 700. And those numbers being so different, that 650 is what they're going to use. So for someone who may have a 500, 550, and 600, that's the deal breaker. So you just want to make sure that your credit score is just as high as it can be by being aware of what's on your report.
Gotcha. And then to the person that is looking to possibly do real estate. I'm sure you get this question, and you're doing classes, education now for people in real estate. So make sure y'all go and pay for it. But I'm gonna try to get some free information in.
And that's why I wanted to get into education, because so many people, I started my page from 0 followers. Like literally, I started Bree is my realtor as a new Instagram page in 2019. And now in just a little over 2 years, almost 3 years, I now have almost 17,000 followers. I've never paid for ads. I've never paid for followers. I've never done anything like that. These are all organic people that have either known me, found me, a mom sent it to their daughter to work with me, or hashtags or whatever. So with having an organic audience that have been following me from really seeing me start to where I'm at now, they have a million questions. And it is a poor use of my time and a disservice to my current clients to freely mentor all these different agents in this overly saturated industry that have questions that, one, oftentimes are Googleable. The biggest question I get is, how do I get into real estate? You don't even want to be in real estate if you don't know that. Because I didn't call anyone, I didn't DM anyone, I didn't ask anyone how to get into real estate. I Googled and started doing my research on, what does it take to be a realtor? Is this like an apprenticeship? Do you just have to like be up under a realtor? Is this a license thing? What is this? You have to go to school. You have to pass first the class test in order to be able to take the state exam. So it's like, that's a clear indication that you don't really want this. You have no resources. How are you going to come into a career that is, one, overly saturated, that is, two, has very little guidance on what you should be doing, and three, in the middle of a pandemic, because we're still in a pandemic. So when I had clients last year that were being furloughed, hours were being decreased, being denied by lenders, we had issues during the transaction, I had to figure out how to get them to closing. So if you can't even tell me how to get licensed, you are 1,000% not going to be able to guide your client on what to do when it really hits the fan. And now you're 4 days away from closing, your appraisals come in low, and you don't know what to do. So even when I was looking for an assistant and people were kind of like, well, I have some questions, or, it was just, I wasn't getting enough of what can I do to stand out, or people really standing out. It was people just wanting that free knowledge and that, So the very first question I was asking when I was interviewing was, what separates you from everybody else, and what are the qualities that you possess to help me elevate my career to the next level? Because you just going with me day to day, you're gonna get all the information you need just from my different transactions. So I say all that to say, I would say to new realtors, make sure that you are, one, being resourceful, make sure that you are taking this really seriously. I think a lot of people see, there's a lot of beautiful black women in Atlanta. I come from a background of makeup, so I generally look put together. As long as I go get my hair done, I can do my makeup, I dress decent. So I look cute on Instagram doing these boomerangs. You don't know what goes on in the back end and the sacrifices that I've had to make in order to obtain that knowledge, because it wasn't just given to me. I still have to study. I got to study the market. Contracts change every year. I got to keep up with my continuing education classes. Now that I'm a broker, I have more responsibilities, not only with my firm, but I have put more pressure on myself, because if you work with a broker, you're expecting a little bit more knowledge than, a newly licensed agent. So get that idea out of your mind that it's like this cute, fun, lit, thing, and all we're doing is like we get clients and then we get them under contract and then we close and get the commission. It's not that easy. It's almost insulting when people are like, you can do it, so I can do it. It's like, no, because if you see a Drake or a, whatever, Jay-Z didn't get to where he's at from just kind of like, I'm rapping and it just kind of went off. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of mental stability that it takes. So take it seriously and really put in the work. I'm not lucky. I didn't haphazardly get here by chance. I really put in the work. I've fasted from TV. I fasted from social media. I fasted from liquor. I've abstained from sex. When I was looking to go to the next level, I made a lot of sacrifices because I take it so seriously. And the more that I put in, the more I'm gonna get out. And in this microwavable generation, everybody wants that instant gratification of I got licensed, everyone's gonna start coming to me as clients. It doesn't work like that. I have to sit and plan my content. I have to come up with these, these captions, this information, all this kind of stuff. So make sure that you are taking it seriously would be my biggest advice. People just want to get into it and just kind of do it. And it's not going to be rewarding with that expectation. In the very first webinar, me and one of my colleagues, one of my members of my brokerage, we partnered to do these webinars because we were getting so many questions. And she kind of said, okay, you know what, let's do the Reel of Real Estate and let's do like weekly or monthly lives and let's kind of have the conversation of what's really going on behind the scenes. And I said, let's monetize that because this information is so valuable, it should have a price tag on it. And I hate to say it that bluntly, that directly, but it is what it is. So I have, these webinars on different topics, and the very first one that we decided to do was the biggest one. Real estate is not a side hustle. It's not. This is not one of those little things like, yeah, I do real estate on the side. I would never trust a realtor that's just kind of like, that's like my little, like braiding hair, that's something you can do on Saturdays and Sundays or something. Someone spending $500,000 on where they lay their head at night is not something that I take lightly, and I wouldn't want that to be taken lightly from someone whose services I'm utilizing. Then we have a lot of other topics, turn your comments into commissions, how to choose the right brokerage. That is pivotal for your career as a realtor. How to pass the real estate exam. I failed twice and passed on the third try, and using the resources and using the mindset and the steps that I've come up with in this webinar, I passed my broker exam on the very first try. And that's not multiple choice, it's simulation. So you have to really know and be able to filter through these different examples and scenarios and all that kind of stuff, because whatever you select populates the next. So if you get the first one wrong, the whole thing is wrong. So I'm very proud of myself that I was able to pass it on the very first time because it was not easy and I'm not a great test taker. So that was another one that we felt like, okay, how do people even pass this exam? Because it's like taking the SATs again. So, and all of those are available by clicking the link in my bio under Live Knowledge-Based Discussions. That's the title of it, Live Knowledge-Based Discussions, and they're very affordable. They range from $40 to, I think our highest price one is $75. And then we recently did a contracts class because working with other agents, we see how much they don't know. So we said, if we're gonna be working with all these different realtors in the industry, let's do our part to educate them. And these were in-person classes that we'll be doing in the coming months again, in July, August, stuff like that.
That's a lot of free information. So, I have this balloon. Everyone that comes to the podcast, I have them to write one word or one phrase that they feel like stands in between people and what they want to do. I'm going to blow this up. I'm going to allow you to do that.
Okay.
All right?
And I've already got it. So it can be like a full phrase? Okay. Can I write my name?
Sure. Manifestation, mindset, mentality. Talk to us about it.
Manifestation is real. It just is. I feel like it sounds cliche. It's cool right now. Everyone's on the manifestation wave of saying things and posting these memes and, whatever. But manifestation is truly seeing in your mind what you want to happen and expecting it to happen that way and not being surprised when it happens that way and believing that it's going to and that you deserve for it to happen that way. And that's with everything. And that's not to say like I'm some manifestation expert, because I'm not. I just have been able to successfully manifest a lot of things in work. I'm working on it in other areas of my life. But manifestation is real. So really, if you want something in life, you have to see it. It happens twice. It happens first in your mind, and then it happens second in reality. So make sure that you're doing the work to train yourself to see the things that you want to happen. A lot of people feel like that's not gonna happen for me. I can't do that. Why? See it first, and then start to speak it and believe it. Your mindset is going to be the biggest reason behind your success. Like even, and this is a weak example, but even like Cardi B or your favorite rapper, your favorite athlete, they're not shocked when they get to where they're going. They're like, I knew I was supposed to be here. Drake always says, I called myself a great even before I knew I was. You just have to start speaking it and believing it. It'll happen. I was watching like a manifestation thing on YouTube, and it was like, even if you don't believe it yet, just start to say it, and then subconsciously your mind will start to believe it, and it will start to happen. So the first step is to just start saying it, and that's just all gonna have to do with your mindset. And then your mentality. No one owes you anything. Like people that DM me, I don't have to give you this information. I just don't. So the mentality of working hard for it and really putting in the footwork, because you can have all the faith you want, you can see it, but faith without works is dead, and we know that.
Preach.
So if you want all of these things, but you post one time on Instagram, you don't do any kind of lead generation, you don't know anything because you haven't done the research to obtain the knowledge, that's the works. So that faith that you have is dead because you're not putting exactly anything behind it. So your mentality needs to be, I'm gonna work hard for this, and all the energy that I give it, it has to be reciprocated. It has to align. So I feel like those are, everyone feels like I've got some like book on like how to become a top producing realtor in your first year. It's those things.
That's good.
It's literally those things.
So what I want to do is I want to take the life out of that for people. Talk to yourself. She talked about that she was talking to herself. Clients come to me. And then embracing that mindset and the mentality that that's going to happen to me, and therefore when I step into that space, I'm gonna move and operate like I'm supposed to be there because I said that. So I'm gonna pop that and tell people where they can find you if they want to work with you. Now you're in Nashville and Atlanta, which I'm assuming is like could be Georgia and Tennessee. I don't know how the licenses work, but how can people find you?
So my Instagram is at Bree is my realtor, BreeIsMyRealtor. It was like a little spelling bee. Bree is my realtor. I'm trying to get heavier on Facebook, but like, oh, I just feel like Facebook is like,
tough. It's
it
tough.
is, especially when you get so used to Instagram. Because I'm like, where do I find like, but my Facebook is just my name, Bria Earley. For any like questions, anything like that as a buyer, a home seller, if you're looking to work with me, I would be absolutely honored to earn your business. All you have to do is click the link in my bio and put yourself on my schedule. It has a little phone consultation link, so you can literally click it, select 15-minute phone consultation, and choose whatever time works for you, and then we'll just kind of go from there. In Atlanta, I service Atlanta Metro and the surrounding cities, which is pretty much everything. I go about an hour and a half out. So Henry County, DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett, all that kind of stuff. In Nashville, same thing. I'm Nashville, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and I'm with arbitrage brokers here. So wherever you're at, if you're looking to work with me, the pleasure would be all mine.
Cool deal. Well, this was fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.